Hello and welcome to Goose Pond Hideout. I'm Rob, and today I want to chat with you about thinking outside the box and what does that really mean for you, because this is all about helping you live the best life that you can live. It's all about your freedom. So I'm sure you've heard the phrase thinking outside the box. And that became popular. It'd been around for a long time, but it really became popular when that 9-dot puzzle came out, and you're supposed to connect the dots with 4 lines, and you can't lift the pencil off the paper. So you try to connect the dots. And of course, the thing is you've got to go outside of the 9 dots to make it work. And that's where the thinking outside the box term came from. But I like to think of the fact that there isn't even a box at all. So, what does that mean for you? And again, it's about you living an intentional life, about you living the best life that you can live. And I want you to be able to make your choices for what you want to do. You be able to do the things, when you want to be doing them. And our society, from the day we're born, they put us in a box, and you're always, supposed to live a certain way. And that's where, if you want to have an intentional life, a fulfilling life, a life of doing what makes you happy, you got to think outside the box. And again, my point is that there isn't even a box at all. And, it all became real popular for folks with that 9-dot puzzle. And a really great example that I always think of is the 4-minute mile. Back in the day, they used to think that humans couldn't run. 4 minutes was this like magical wall, a box, if you will, that people just could not possibly run faster. And today, when I think about that kind of a constraint, I find it kind of humorous, because 4 minutes is just a number. So you can run a mile at 4 minutes and 20 seconds, but you can't run a mile at 3:59, 0.6 seconds. That, like a half a second faster, you can't do that. And it just makes no sense to me today. But it was really like people, literally decades, years and years and years, people just like, the human being cannot run 4 minutes in a mile. It just isn't possible. And then back in the mid 50s, back in the mid 50s, I think it was 56, but somewhere in that time frame, Roger, I believe his last name's Bannister, broke the 4-minute barrier. And the funny thing about it, in my research and looking it up, is his coach actually tricked him. He was, practicing, running, doing his practicing, and his coach was adding just a little bit of time, like 1/10 of a second time to his stopwatch. And so then when he got to the real race that was official, he actually ran 3:59, 0.4, 0.6, something like that, roughly a half a second under 4 minutes, because he got tricked by his own coach. He didn't realize that he was running that fast because of that box of the magic 4-minute mile. And the thing is once Roger broke the 4-minute mile, all kinds of people, the next month somebody broke it, and then 2 months later somebody broke it. Pretty soon everybody was running the mile in less than 4 minutes. All because, Roger finally broke that barrier. And that's what I want for you in life when you're thinking about what you want to do. You want to live on a homestead. You don't like you don't want a traditional job. Whatever the box that society has artificially created, the box is not real. The box doesn't even exist. But yet you're stuck living inside of it. And one more example that I think of is car trip, okay? You have your car all gassed up with the full tank of gas, and you got a couple, 2 or 3 of your friends pile into the car, and you're in New York City, and you're heading down to Florida for a weekend vacation. what's the best way to get there? What's the fastest way that you can get from New York City down to Florida? Well, if you live inside the constraint world of the box, you start thinking, well, do we take Interstate 95? Do we go for bypasses? Do we go on the tollway? Do we avoid the tollway? You know, where do we stop for gas? Do we run in and pee and jump back in the car and rotate? You drive the first 2 hours and I'll drive the second 2 hours, and we'll get the fastest way that we can get to Florida. But the box does not exist. The fastest way is drive your car to the airport and get on an airplane and fly down to Florida. But most people wouldn't even think of that option because you're in the car with the full tank of gas, you know, ready to rip down the road. And that's why I want you to, you know, forget about the box. It doesn't exist. The box was artificially invented by one group of people to control you. And so how does this play into your, you know, everyday living your life? And it's like, you know, when you get out of school and you become an adult, you're supposed to get, you know, a traditional job, 9 to 5, go to work, make your money. You're supposed to buy a house. You buy the most house that you can buy for what you're earning, you know, the down payment you have. You mortgage yourself to the hilt. You can just barely make that mortgage. And as soon as you start to get caught up, as soon as you start to get ahead a little bit, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to sell that house and get a bigger house with a new mortgage that's, you know, got you in debt up to here. And you got to work at a job that you don't really like. And, you know, all of those things. You got to buy a nice car because you got to be able to get to work, and you got to have fancy clothes, you know, for work, and you got to stop and have your designer cup of coffee on your morning, you know, on the way in. And, you know, that probably isn't the way that you want to live. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here listening to me talking to you if it was, right? Because it's that freedom. So, you know, forget the box, live your life intentionally. You know, maybe you could just rent. You know, who says that you have to buy a house? You know, you can buy a little bitty tiny house out into the woods. You know, we've got 2 bedrooms. And you don't have to have a home that you entertain in. You know, that's you watch the real estate shows on TV, and all these young people, they always want to have a house that's built for entertaining. Got to have a big open kitchen so you can entertain. You know, maybe you don't like people. Maybe you just like your cats and your dogs, right? So, you know, just be thinking about that. And, you know, there is no box. It's imaginary. So you don't even have to think outside of it because it's not there in the first place. And just think about intentionally living the way that you want to live, doing what you want to do. And, okay, one more jokey thing here is, you know, how do you put an elephant into a refrigerator, right? Well, if you live in our constraint box world, you start saying, well, an elephant's too big. You can't fit an elephant in a refrigerator. There's no way. That's just not possible. You can't do it. If you If you ask a young child, they'll tell you, open up the refrigerator door, put the elephant in, and close the door. Because they don't have that box. They don't have that logical limitation that us adults have put onto ourselves. So, you know, that's the way when you start thinking about how you want to live your life. And I get comments all the time, you know, I just can't quit my job. There's no way I can buy a house. There's, you know, people frustrated because, you know, they've just blocked in their mind that there's no way that they can do what they really want to do, that they're stuck inside that box. So you've just got to, you know, put that to the side, pretend like it's not even there because it isn't, and just be really open-minded and figure out how to make it work. You know, you want to be out on the homestead like we are. You know, I talked about living on the boat and everything back when we were on our boat for 9+ years, full time. And, you know, maybe it's an RV, you want to just, you know, cruise around the country. And, you know, people, oh, you can't do that. How, you got to make money, you know, how you going to pay your taxes, how you going to, you know, you got to register, you got to have insurance. What about medical insurance? You know, and they just, they want to keep you in that box. And if you get outside of it, it makes them feel bad about their life. And I want you, you know, to feel good about your life. We're feeling good about our life. You know, sure, we have our days, right? Like anybody. But, you know, you out on your homestead, in a boat, in an RV, you know, not a traditional job, it'll work out if you make it work out. So, you know, just be thinking about that, being intentional, and be Roger Bannister running the 4-minute mile, or the little kid putting the elephant into the refrigerator. You know, those rules don't exist, and you can be happy doing what you want to do, driving your car to the airport so you can get to Florida as fast as possible. All right, so have a good one. I appreciate you listening to me out here on the homestead, rambling around about boxes and no boxes, and your happiness. Have at it, right? Freedom!